What's up, gamers? Russian Roulette here. I'm going to be reviewing Killzone 3 today. Um, for most of you, you probably know Killzone 3 is made by Guerrilla Games, and it is the story between the Earth forces ISA versus these humanoid forces called Helghast. Alright, to start off, graphics. Graphics are amazing. I have a crappy standard TV, and it looks like I have a high def TV. Many of you probably know this, but it has the 3D TV capability. So if somehow you have a 3D TV, jump on it because it probably looks amazing. Um, you know, graphics have their ups and downs. The biggest down I think for Killzone 3 has to be the blood effect. If you played Killzone 1 or Killzone 2, you probably know that the blood is it just doesn't look right. Whenever you hit someone with a bullet, it looks like you hit an artery magically, and blood spewing out. But I'm used to the Killzone games. I'm used to it. It's part of the series, where if you come to play Killzone, you expect that the cheesy, graphic blood. All right, next we have gameplay. It's an FPS, so point, aim, shoot, spray, whatever you got to do. However, this time Guerrilla Games for the single player decided that they're going to go for a much more cinematic feel. There's a lot of on-rail and vehicle scenarios where the best of which I have to say is when you get to use the Helghast jetpack, and you're jumping from oil rig to oil rig thing, I guess. I don't even know what they were. Then you're killing Helghast, you're blowing stuff up. It's fun. I have to say the biggest change in the Killzone 3 gameplay is the controls and the sensitivity of the controls. If you played Killzone 2, I'm sure you remember the crappy controls. That's what stood out for a lot of people. That's what turned people away. That's what people stopped playing the game for. And they fixed it. It feels like it's Call of Duty type controls, where it feels good and the sensitivity is much better. If you played Killzone 2, you remember pull the trigger. It takes half a second to a second to actually shoot. And now that's fixed, where you pull the trigger, it's shooting. However, they did take away in Killzone 2. I don't remember if it was in Killzone 1. But you drag your gun across the screen type of deal when you move instead of being a bipod type look. They decided to get rid of that, but that is a sacrifice I will gladly take if it's for better controls and way better sensitivity. All in all, Killzone 3 is much more satisfying than Killzone 2 in the gameplay aspect, whether it be the cinematic scenarios or just sensitivity of the guns. Alright, next is the story. It's a first-person shooter. Generally, first-person shooters have kind of a cookie-cutter type story. And the Helghast versus ISA story, it's basically, if you really look at it, it's kind of like a World War II type thing, just mixed around. You have your good forces who are, getting pushed back. They're taking a lot of losses. And then you have these chairman people who have strong weapons, who have good strategies, but they're losing because they count on numbers rather than will of force. What I did find funny with the story, though, is that the head of the chairman of the Helghast Senate, he looks a lot like Stalin. And there's one that has similarities to Hitler. Obviously they don't look exactly like him, but you can tell there's similarities, and it gives the story a decent look because you can kind of relate to it. So in the story, you continue to play as Sergeant Shevchenko, and you fight alongside Captain Narvo and your longtime squad mate Rico. And then you meet new people. You meet a female soldier named Jammer, and you meet a couple other people across the story. It's a decent story, but it didn't really cut it for me. I mean, they could have done way better. Like they just had a generic story. They could have made it more interesting than the basic is the Helgons are starting to create biological weapons. I'm pretty sure that's happened in every FPS story except for like Call of Duty 1 and Call of Duty 2. But beyond that, cookie cutter story, it's not horrible, but it's not really cutting it either. Um, Next is sound. Sound, all in all, decent. In single player, you got your radio chatter that you hear between ISA squads. And then, obviously, my favorite part of the sound has to be when you start ripping into the Helgon and their squads and their allies. And when they die, they have their little screams, and it's always like a deeper, like darker scream because of the masks they wear. Um, the soundtrack is that typical arrangement of that epic kind of classical music, but it fits. For some games, if you play the soundtrack does not fit, and this fits with Killzone 3 because of the grand scheme. The when you think about the antagonists of the story, it's a very good soundtrack. The biggest problem with sound has to be voice acting. Voice acting in this game is a joke. The worst has to be in the scenes where the Helghast Senate is having like war meetings, and it it when they talk, it just does not look natural. It looks like Guerrilla Games just threw it in, decided we got to get this game out, so let's forget about voice acting and pop it in, no matter how bad it looks. But besides that, the sounds are great for Killzone 3. And finally, the biggest draw for people, I'm sure, is the multiplayer. Um, Multiplayer has three different game types. First being guerrilla warfare. It's straight up team deathmatch. It's the best way to kind of get used to the game if you've never played it before. You're coming back after a long time, like myself. Um, it's a great way for your beginning levels. You can level up extremely fast. And next is the original Warzone, which I'm sure most people remember from the Killzones. It's where the ISA and the Helghast are battling, and the game types are constantly changing. It's not like one game type. So one minute you might be capturing points, and the next you might have to do a search and destroy mission. Um, and finally, and this is my favorite, is objective, where the ISA are attacking a facility, and the Helghasts are always defending the facility. An objective, this is why it's my favorite. There's scenes where the top three or between 3 and 6 players get to star in the scene. So one person might be running down the cliff, and another few people might be calling in like artillery strikes, or calling in or laying down covering fire or something. All right, and I think the biggest problem that they did was when they tried to make an unlock system. So in most multiplayer games now, because Call of Duty has set the standard for this, is you have to have some type of unlock system for people to really be attracted to it, to keep longevity in the game generally. So with each class, you can buy 2 new guns, 3 secondary guns, a new specialization in that class, and then for each specialization, there's 2 plus like upgrades. There's not a lot of longevity to this upgrade system. I don't think it's an interesting idea, but I don't think it's gonna be enough to keep the game going. People are probably gonna get tired once they unlock basically everything. But other than that, good FPS. If you have a PS3, buy it. I do strongly suggest you buy it because it has a good community within it, and it's a great game. Even if if you're disappointed with Killzone 2, this is an upgrade, and I think it will bring you back to the Killzone series. And this has been a Wildside review, guys. Make sure to go to the website wildsidereviews.blogspot.com and comment, rate, and share. Also, subscribe. Thanks, guys.